What happens when a royal sits down for one of the most prestigious interviews in America only to walk out in fury? The entire event began in the suffocating silence of the Tonight Show studio, where the brilliant lights and the familiar laughter of Jimmy Fallon were replaced by a heavy atmosphere, almost like a courtroom. Fallon, an MC usually known for easy, breezy exchanges, sat down, ready to conduct the interview he knew would be the apex of his career. He faced Harry, who carried a fragile tension, an arrogance carefully framed in a veneer of endurance. The initial welcome from Jimmy Fallon was a blend of a gracious host's warmth and a serious interviewer's respect. "Harry, thank you so much for being here," Fallon began, his tone polite, yet suitably serious. Harry responded with a curt nod, a forced smile, almost an expression of reluctant concession. "I suppose the world expects me to explain myself, so here I am," he said, his voice carrying a slight challenge, as if his presence were a massive favor to the audience. The first few minutes passed with dangerous smoothness. Fallon asked about life in California, raising his children away from the royal spotlight, and new philanthropic projects. Harry responded, but every word carried a sharper edge than expected. "Life in America is tolerable," Harry sneered, choosing an arrogant word. "At least here, I don't have to bow to outdated rituals or pretend my family understands me. It's liberating to live somewhere people treat me like I'm special, and not just a spare part of a system." Fallon, who had interviewed countless politicians, presidents, and celebrities under pressure, was unfazed by this conceit. He merely leaned forward slightly. "But doesn't tradition offer some comfort? A sense of stability?" Harry raised an eyebrow, snorting disdainfully. "Comfort for whom? For the people sitting on the golden throne? Tradition is just a cage with prettier wallpaper. My family clings to it because it hides the cracks." The tension had shifted. It was no longer a dialogue. It was preparation for a conflict. Fallon took notes, his gaze maintaining a deadly composure. He knew Harry was craving a fight, and his role was to let the truth, however unpleasant, be exposed. Fallon decided it was time to change tack. He glanced at his note card, his voice growing heavier, transitioning to the day's most serious news. "Harry," Fallon said cautiously, "we can't ignore the unfolding story. Yesterday, the global Sumud flotilla convoy was intercepted in international waters. 500 activists from 46 nations trying to deliver aid, baby formula, medicine to Gaza. Reports suggest Greta Thunberg was among those detained." He looked at Harry with a direct gaze. "It's a complex story, Harry, but these are 500 people who risked their lives to oppose a sustained blockade. As someone dedicated to humanitarian work, what is your reaction to this intervention, this action aimed at silencing these voices and needs?" Harry sighed, a sharp, weary sound, as if he were offended to have to answer a question unrelated to himself. "Well, Jimmy," Harry said, sneering slightly, "I think it says a lot that the media immediately focuses on the numbers and the celebrity Greta instead of focusing on the root cause." He leaned back, arms crossed. His focus was now completely disconnected from the ships in the Mediterranean and centered on his personal struggle. "They are saying, we will decide what happens next. The Israeli Navy, or any power structure, is trying to blockade the truth, suffocate the narrative. It's an act of collective extortion. They won't allow these people to control the truth about Gaza. And that's where I see the link," Harry continued, his voice increasingly arrogant. "This is a personal blockade against me. I try to live my life, decide what I want to share, but the media always wants to block my way, wants to confine me to a story they write. Those activists are fighting against a suffocating system, and they don't want to be pawns in a political game. That's what I understand better than anyone in this room. I protect what's mine. That's all that matters." This absolute self-focus was almost a slap in Fallon's face. He had tried to introduce a global issue, and Harry had twisted it into a personal grievance. Fallon realized the interview was beyond pleasantries. He had to confront Harry's conceit. He quickly took notes, then looked up, his gaze sharp as a surgical knife. "Harry," Fallon said, his voice calm, "you talk about reclaiming control of your narrative, but when you speak publicly, Whether in interviews, documentaries, or your book, you are opening the door to questions. You are inviting scrutiny. Do you feel there is a contradiction between demanding absolute privacy while sharing intimate details on your own terms? Harry blinked, annoyance flashing across his face. That is a tired argument. Privacy doesn't mean silence. It means I control. I decide what the world deserves to know, not in the way the media wants to distort it. If people can't grasp that, they don't deserve my explanation. So, it's selective? Fallon gently suggested, the sharpness in his tone undeniable. Harry leaned back, arms crossed, a smile of near arrogance spreading across his face. Selective? No. It's called freedom. Something you, as an American, should understand better than anyone. These words were a public challenge. The warmth of the opening was completely gone, replaced by icy coldness. Fallon nodded slowly, taking notes. Internally, he knew this wasn't an interview. It was a powder keg, and Harry was holding the match. Fallon pivoted, attacking the personal arrogance. When you describe your wife as saving you from the institution, doesn't that imply that without her, you would still be trapped? Doesn't that give her an almost absolute power over your decisions? Harry smirked, shaking his head. Absolute power? No. It's called a partnership. Something most journalists like you couldn't understand, because you're too busy dissecting other people's relationships instead of living your own life. This direct hit did not provoke anger in Fallon, but it wore down his patience. He took notes and moved to a different angle. You've also been open about raising your children in the U.S. You said here, your children are normal, not pawns in the royal chess game. Do you believe your family failed to protect them? Harry's voice became sarcastic. Protect them? The royal family couldn't even protect their own heirs, let alone the children of spares like us. My children were turned into sacrificial lambs on the altar of tradition. That's not family. That's exploitation. Fallon's patience was tested, but remained intact. He knew that for this interview to matter, he had to touch the emotional core, his mother's legacy. Harry, Fallon said, his voice so soft it was almost a whisper. You've talked about your struggles with the institution, but I want to ask about something deeper. Your mother, Princess Diana, became a global icon not just for her role, but for how she connected with people, for her spirit of independence and challenging tradition. Do you feel you are carrying that legacy? Harry froze, his lips compressed into a thin line. The question had hit a raw nerve, and his reaction was quick and venomous. Legacy is a word the media loves, Harry replied, his voice strained. You elevated my mother to a pedestal, you tore her apart, and then you expect me to carry that weight as if it were a crown I should be grateful for. I am not a replacement for my mother, and I won't let anyone use her name to measure me. That's a fair point, Fallon replied, maintaining his composure. But many still see you continuing that spirit, the spirit of defiance against tradition. Isn't that what you're embracing? Harry scoffed, arms crossed. You all want to turn me into an icon because it makes for better headlines. I'm not here to be a candle in the wind for anyone's nostalgia. My mother's memory belongs to me, to my family, not to the public, and not to the journalists trying to write a story. Harry's voice was almost a direct accusation. Fallon absorbed it without flinching, his decades of experience holding him together. All right, Fallon said softly. Let's pivot. Let's talk about resentment. Many critics have pointed out that you're trying to escape the institution, but never truly letting go of it. Your book, your Netflix series, interviews like this constantly revolve around the royal family. How do you respond to those who say your narrative has become defined by resentment rather than purpose? Harry frowned. Resentment? I talk about it because it shaped me, because it scarred me. The royal family isn't something you just walk away from. It's branded onto your skin. If I choose to expose its failures, that is my right. If people can't handle the truth, that's their problem. But you've also profited from those failures. Fallon emphasized, his tone sharp. Do you see a conflict there? Harry leaned forward now, eyes narrowed. Profited? Tell me, Jimmy. Is it profit when you are trying to reclaim the pieces of a life that was stolen from you? Or is it survival? I took back my story. And if people want to pay to hear it, so be it. Better they hear it from me than from the tabloids that people like you love to quote. The contempt in Harry's voice was palpable. Fallon kept his voice low, but it became strained. I don't quote tabloids, Fallon said, his voice firm. I ask the questions the public wants answered. There is a difference. Semantics, Harry sneered. In the end, you're still digging, still feeding the public's thirst for drama. You are no different from the rest. Fallon let the silence linger, watching Harry immerse himself in his own arrogance. His composure finally broke, not with anger, but with profound disappointment. I have interviewed leaders, survivors, people who have endured unimaginable loss, Fallon said, his voice low and deliberate. They all carry dignity. What I'm seeing here, Harry, is something entirely different. Harry stiffened, the temporary disappearance of his arrogance now replaced by sheer rage. Dignity? Don't lecture me on dignity. I've survived things you couldn't survive. If I seem unapologetic, it's because I have earned the right to be. Dignity is for those who still beg for approval. I don't need anyone's. Fallon slowly shook his head, his gaze weary. You were gifted a life most people couldn't imagine. And instead of owning that, instead of wielding it with grace, you sit here mocking every question, treating every opportunity as an insult. That is not survival. That is self-destruction. This hit was too much. Harry's face flushed with fury, his fists clenched on the armrests. You think you can shame me? You think I owe you anything? I owe no one an explanation, least of all you. Then why are you here? Fallon asked, his voice rising slightly. You complain about the media, but you run toward the spotlight. You talk about freedom, but you are shackled by your own bitterness. You want to be heard, Harry, but you refuse to listen to anyone. And that, more than anything, is why you are here alone, without the institution, without family, without the respect you think you deserve. Harry's jaw clenched. He shoved his chair back, the scraping sound loud on the studio floor. That's it, Harry screamed, his eyes blazing. I will not sit here and be insulted. This interview is over. He ripped the microphone pack off his jacket, the cable snapping, and stormed off toward the exit in a fit of pure rage. Fallon watched him go, his composure finally returning, but now it was icy cold. He turned back to the camera, his voice steady. Sometimes the hardest truth to hear is the one that cuts the deepest. Tonight, you saw a man unwilling to face his own reflection. What do you think? Was this the act of a courageous rebel, finally standing up to reclaim control, or simply a heartbreaking display of how arrogance triumphed over dignity? Let us know your thoughts. Like this video if you were shocked by Harry's walkout. Share immediately so your friends can also witness this explosive moment. Comment your opinion below. Was Harry right? Or was Fallon right? Subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss more unbelievable TV moments like this.